Hello, welcome, and thank you all for attending here today, and thank you for all the past presentations. They were all very wonderful. We hope you love ours as well. Thank you especially to Vercel for allowing us to be here today to present to all of you as well. I'm Gregory Gould. This is Anna Thompson, Tom Zahner. We represent Johnson & Johnson Innovative Medicines, and we're here to talk to you today about how J&J delivers products better, faster, and with more value to our customers than ever before, using some of the capabilities of our platform. So we'll be talking a little bit about the business problem, a couple of use cases that we specifically have, some of the key benefits that we'll be going over, and then some of the strategic importance that we have for leveraging some of the capabilities of our platform. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna. Anna's going to talk a little bit about our business problem, and then we'll go into some of the use cases, and we'll have some Q&A at the end.
Thank you so much, Greg, and thank you, Vercel, for having us here. First, I want to start with mantra, and our mantra is probably going to be dear to you all. We're trying to drive better outcomes, faster speed to market, and with greater value to our customers. The challenge for all of us is building low-cost solutions while maintaining greater product value as well as quality and speed to market. So as we build the sites, we keep that in mind. The second part is allowing our developers to focus on building the sites and enhancing the sites and not worry about deployment. So accelerating deployments and improving the infrastructure so they don't have to worry about it is another one. We have built two technical stacks. The first stack is for classic experiences, specific for static sites and static content. There is some dynamic features to it that we use through API. And the second one is rich experiences, which is more interactive and engaging type of solution. Pre-existing platform that we had that supported, and we have many sites. We're supporting 6 therapeutic areas and hundreds of sites. So pre-existing solution was a monolith. It was hard to upgrade, so it was outdated and sometimes several versions behind the version. It was also not built with a centralized features in mind, so it was kind of disparate, and some of the features were created and in a way that it wasn't easy to reuse. So we embrace the new platforms where we have more centralized components, API-driven and service-driven, with lower cost of ownership for our stakeholders, as well as a better experience for our developers and for users. With that, more information and more details will be covered by Tom, so I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Anna.
Yeah.
So I'll start off, I'll talk a little bit about the different use cases that we wanted to support when we selected our platform. We started our digital experience platform journey several years ago, really. And we knew at the very beginning that we wanted it to be a composable DXP. We wanted to be able to pick and choose the best of breed products and services that we could use to build the capabilities that our business was going to need. Excuse me. Anna mentioned we had the classic stack and we had the rich stack. We also, we're coming from, from a position where we had various legacy systems in place. And so with having the composable DXP, we needed to be able to not just pick new products, new platforms out there. We needed to also be able to support side by side as good neighbors some of these existing legacy systems as we work to evolve the overall ecosystem internally. Specifically, with the classic stack, these are our smaller properties, have maybe a couple dozen pages of content, not very featureful, so we're not doing a lot of personalization. They're statically generated, and we wanted to be able to host them at the edge. Now, for the rich experience websites that we support, much fewer number of sites there, so nowhere near the 200 to 300 experiences that we have in the classic stack, but still we have lots of content. We have thousands of pages of content in some of these sites, and we need to get them to users as quickly as possible. all of that content that we're getting out to the users, though, however, it's got to be delivered at the right time, at the right place, to the right audience. And so a big part of the considerations that were really informing our decisions around the platforms that we were going to select were, how can we personalize these experiences to all of our users? So those might be patients, they might be HCPs, healthcare professionals. But ultimately, we don't want to wind up in a situation where a patient that's just received a diagnosis from a doctor or gotten a prescription for a new medication that they've never heard of, goes out and suddenly they're seeing all this very critically important scientific information, but that's targeted to a completely different audience. That's going to be overwhelming for them, and it's going to be confusing. So it's very important to us when we build our experiences, that we understand who our users are, and that we're able to personalize the experiences, personalize the content that's being delivered. And because we're delivering everything from the edge, we need to be able to have a platform that supports personalization at the edge as well. So, a cloud, a front-end cloud platform that's going to play nicely in our ecosystem has to have that capability. Now, aside from the personalization for our public users, we also needed to be able to, take into consideration our internal stakeholders. So anytime we're going to put content out to the public, especially if it's going to be highly scientific content, it's going to be highly, medically, technical content, it needs to go through the review process. So anyone who works in a highly regulated, highly validated industry, knows that the review process for content can take a long time. It's got to go through medical, it's got to go through legal review, and it's got to go through regulatory review. And part of that means that they have to be able to see the content in situ. We can't just give reviewers, a text document that's got all of the words in the same order that they're going to appear on the website, because if you have one piece of content over here in one column and another piece of content in another column, individually they might be fine, but together they might imply a different message that's not approved, that's going to run afoul of regulatory compliance restrictions. So the ability to spin up arbitrary preview environments, review environments, was another major consideration for us when we were evaluating platforms. Now, any sort of architecture, if it's a monolithic architecture, if it's a decoupled headless architecture like what we're using for our rich experiences and for our classic experiences, is going to allow you to spin up arbitrary, separate environments. You can plan for the number of environments that you need, but occasionally, external forces, outside of the company, outside of the organization, industry-wide forces will necessitate changes that may interrupt existing workflows, existing deployment pipelines that you have in place. So it was critically important for us to identify a platform that we could collaborate with that would allow us the flexibility to meet some of those business needs and business challenges that we would sometimes face. So the last use case I want to touch on, this is more related to the classic experiences. I mentioned that most of those are smaller sites. We do have a number of simpler sites that have large volumes of content. They have, like the rich experiences, they have thousands of pages of content. And I mentioned we want to deliver everything at the edge. We want low latency. We want very fast page loads. But we also don't want to have to statically regenerate every single piece of content. If we have tens of thousands of pieces of content, we don't want to have to say to a business stakeholder, hey, that typo that you want fixed on the homepage, it's going to take us hours to get that out, even though everything's approved, because of the way the architecture is implemented. So the ability to incrementally, statically regenerate only certain pieces of content, particularly when you have 10,000 pages of content, is a very important driver for us when evaluating and picking out a platform. And so all of those efficiencies, all those use cases really kind of center around the ability to get content out quickly and efficiently, to kind of streamline all of our internal processes. But the overall theme there that I think we really want everyone to take away from this is that picking the right cloud partner, the right front-end cloud partner to collaborate with, will allow you to not only save your developers time, but it'll also allow you to increase value for the business. So if you can save a developer 1 to 2 minutes of time on a task that they might have to perform maybe a couple of times during a sprint, that's not really going to seem that impactful. But if you have half a dozen developers working on a given team across maybe half a dozen sprints for that particular work stream, and then you multiply that times 200 or 300 individual properties in your portfolio, suddenly you're talking about hundreds of person hours of developer time that you didn't have to expend on tasks that are basically just reinventing the wheel in a lot of cases. And you'll have happier developers at the end of the day, but you'll also have that much more time that you can redeploy to build other more impactful features for your users. And so, ultimately, if you make the right decisions when you're picking the components of your composable digital experience platform, you can build better, you can build faster, and you can create much more value.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Tom.